Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto trained from the beginning and claimed Hinata, Ino, Tenten and Temari, part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this and comment for next part. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto, being the container of the Kyuubi, son of the 4th Hokage, and likely the greatest prankster in Konoha's history, had found himself sitting before the 3rd Hokage more times than he cared to count. The old man had been there for him since his birth, and was the closest thing to a father figure Naruto had ever known. Now, however, he was uncomfortable here, if only for the sake of his friends. Kiba and Hinata sat to either side of him before the Hokage's ancient desk, and they too looked worried. The third son, their Junin sensei, had spent the previous day in the hospital, having lost a worrying amount of blood through the nose and having suffered a kick to the groin so vicious, it would have made Madara Uchiha himself wince. The Hokage entered the room, wearing a solemn expression and puffing on his ever-present clay pipe. I'm sure you three are wondering why I've called you here. I'll start by mentioning that Asuma has told me. I'm sorry Hokage-sama, please don't punish them, it was all my idea. Discover more. Books. Books and literature. Naruto. The Hokage silenced the genin, sternly but not angrily. As I was saying, Asuma has told me you did exceptionally well in your bell test, deploying several original jutsu, collaboration techniques, and fantastic teamwork. He did divulge to me the exact nature of your strategy, and I must say I'm impressed, if a little amused. Naruto blinked, his mouth not quite shut properly. You're impressed. The Hokage puffed on his pipe with a benevolent smile and nodded. You three have shown exceptional promise, and Asuma has asked me to give you a C rank mission immediately. Whoa, Kiba breathed. AC rank. Already. That's awesome. Believe it, Naruto added. You'll be escorting a carpenter by the name of Tazuna to his home in the Land of Waves. His homeland has been having a problem with bandits, and you'll be protecting him and his workers until he finishes his current project. He's promised to give C rank pay to each of you upon his safe arrival in the Land of Waves. It didn't take long after that for Team 8 to eagerly make for the door, giddily intent on preparing for their first mission all day. However, the Hokage sent a chill down Naruto's spine by calling him back. Don't leave just yet, Naruto. We still have to talk. Ah crap, I'm so dead. He shuddered and turned back toward his grandfather figure, taking up his seat once more. The rest of Team 8 filed out of the office, with both Hinata and Kiba throwing concerned glances back at their new teammate. Once they were gone, however, the Hokage pulled a mostly plain-looking ninja scroll out of his desk, laying it before Naruto. Perplexed, the boy leaned forward and squinted at the spiral mark on each end of the scroll. Hokage Gigi, what's this? The professor sighed. I'm sorry I couldn't show you this years ago, my boy, but they asked me not to. I can only hope they'll be able to provide a decent explanation, since I don't have one. He unfurled the scroll across his desk, revealing what Naruto recognized as a seal of some kind. The swirls of black ink lit up and cast a warm yellow-white glow about the room, which gradually coalesced into two distinctly human figures. Discover more. Books and literature. Books. Hello, Naruto, the woman with long, smooth red hair spoke up first. My name's Kushina Uzumaki, and I'm your mom. The blonde man standing next to her smiled cheerily, remaining silent until she elbowed him sharply. You've gotta say hi too, ya know. Oh, right. The man beamed once more. I'm Minato Namikaze. I'm your father, Naruto. Kami. I hope he doesn't ever have to see this, Kushina ed. Can you imagine how hard this would hit him? Naruto blinked, still not fully registering what he was seeing. He noted with worrying calm that his mother had just confirmed his suspicions that this was a pre-made recording and nothing more. No, Minato answered honestly. But I think even if we do live, we'll probably show him this one day. Once he's old enough, of course. He turned back to face Naruto, or whatever system had been recording the conversation. Naruto, we recorded this for you because we've been preparing over the last several months to expect an attack on the village, probably on your birthday. It's entirely possible that one or both of us could die if that attack really comes to pass, so we wanted you to, well, to meet us. We thought. Kushina hesitated, then shook her head and spoke up. We thought of making arrangements so you'd know who we were your whole life. If one of us dies and the other survives, that's the plan we'll go with. But if you've lost us both, Naruto, she rubbed her eyes and sighed shakily. Quote. Well, in that case, we've decided to wait to show you this until you graduate from the academy. It was a hard choice, Minato went on. But we thought that if we weren't here with you, it'd be best if you grew up not knowing about us. If you knew who we were, you might have felt that you had to live up to some kind of standard we set, or even worse, you might have started thinking you were entitled to greatness just because of who we were. It could go either way, without us there to help you find your own path in life. Discover more. Books. Books and literature. But now that you're all grown up, now that you're a ninja and you've learned how to be responsible, Kushina smiled sadly, you're ready to hear all of this. And now that you know who we were, we can give you your inheritance and trust you not to hurt yourself with it, she chuckled. See, you're actually from a ninja clan, Naruto. The Uzumaki were never as well known as the Uchiha or Hyuga, for instance, but we can trace our lineage back through the centuries. We have a clan compound here in Konoha, even if it's just a little one, and now it's yours. Minato scratched the back of his head sheepishly. I'm sorry, Naruto, I don't really have anything to offer like that. My parents, your grandparents, were both Chunin whose own parents were civilians. I'm not from a clan, and as the Hokage I can't just leave you all of my assets as inheritance. All of the funds and resources under my name will probably be spent on repairing the village, assuming that possible attack really comes to pass, that is. So I'm sorry, Naruto, but it's your mother who has to make up for 12 years or so of missed birthday presents. The most I can give you is some hand-me-down shinobi gear. He's not the kind of kid who cares that much about material things, Kushina rubbed her belly, at last drawing Naruto's attention to it. By the time he becomes a genin, he'll already be way more grown up than that, believe it. My father was the fourth Hokage. Naruto sat on the polished oak floor of his new bedroom, in front of a cherrywood trunk with the kanji for fire burned into the lid. Said lid had been opened, and Naruto now had a folded white haori in his lap. The note attached said, "It may take a while before you grow into this, but I hope you like it all the same. Love, Dad." He unfolded the haori, noting the pattern of flames along the bottom. This was an authentic copy of Minato Namikaze's haori, probably one of his spares, since he had been wearing one in battle against the Kyuubi. Naruto started crying. It wasn't something he did often, but he never tried to suppress it when the tears came. He decided that since he cried so rarely, the times when he did were somehow important. It was then that he noticed an uncomfortable tingling in his eyes, and he stood up, making his way into the bathroom connected to the master bedroom of the manor. He looked in the mirror, blinking away tears and discomfort, but he could see nothing wrong with his reflection in the mirror. He looked down at his father's haori in the mirror. "I'm gonna make you guys proud," he said aloud to no one, then sniffled. "I'm gonna be Hokage." He unzipped his neon orange jacket, shrugging it off and replacing it with the haori of the fourth Hokage. "Believe it. Tazuna took a swig of sake and scowled. He turned and glared at the Hokage. "I paid for 4 ninjas. I'm looking at 1 ninja and 2 useless brats. At best that adds up to 3 people." He hiccuped. "Can't you idiots even count? Don't worry, you've paid for 4 ninjas and you will have your money's worth. You will be safe." The Hokage chuckled. "And the 4th is on his way." "What's so funny? It's just ironic. The 4th is on his way. You wouldn't understand, but it's probably the most ironic sentence you've ever heard." Hinata and Kiba exchanged glances, while Asuma puffed on his cigarette, completely at ease. Kiba-kun, can you smell Naruto? Discover more. Books and literature. Books. Yeah, he's almost here, Kiba replied with a sniff. Akamaru barked in agreement. Took him long enough, though. Discover more. Books and literature. Books. Maybe he's been talking with Kakashi, Asuma joked. The doors to the Hokage's office opened, and Naruto entered. The third blinked as he immediately noticed the Haori Naruto wore. Underneath it he wore his favorite shirt, black with a fiery orange spiral on his chest, and pants of the darkest orange anyone had ever seen on Naruto. Sorry I'm so late, everyone, he said with a soft smile. I got here as fast as I could, believe it, but I slept in by accident. Sheepishly, he looked down and scratched the back of his head. There were two reasons for this. 1. His new bed in his parents' manor was incredibly comfortable. 2. He'd opened the Uzumaki clan trunk just before he went to bed. There had been envelopes he could open but didn't, a scroll he was completely unable to pry open, and most importantly a mound of gold coins filling the entire trunk, which was big enough to cram 2 or maybe 3 people into. It was like something out of a pirate movie. This left him wide awake until well past midnight. Naruto-kun. Hinata greeted him happily. He looks really different with that coat on, it's a good look for him, she noted. Kiba, meanwhile, cracked an amused smirk. It's like he doesn't know that coat is meant for a guy twice his size. Typical Naruto. Hey, Hinata. He turned to face Tazuna. You must be the bridge builder Tazuna. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, genin of Konoha and your bodyguard for the next month or so. He bowed politely. Tazuna opened his mouth to spit out another insult, but then Naruto's words registered, and he realized the little bastard had threatened him. Your bodyguard for the next month translates as your life and well-being are in my hands for the next month. Quote. Whatever. Keep me alive until the bridge is built, and I'll pay you. That's as far as this goes, we don't have to be friends. Fair enough. Let's get you home, Naruto. Kiba stared as the Jinchuriki passed him by, smiling but not grinning. What the hell happened to you? You were never this subtle, about anything. Your clothes, how you talk, even that stupid grin. Naruto. Hinata spoke up and walked beside Naruto. Are you feeling alright? Never better. Hinata. He let out one of his famous gleeful grins. But what was with you and Tazuna? Oh, that. I know by looking at Kiba that this baka was bothering you, so I wanted to tell him off, but a Hokage would be more, what's the word? Tactful. And where did the coat come from? My dad left it to me. Naruto beamed. Oh, that reminds me. He reached into his weapons pouch and pulled out an odd-looking kunai, with a bright yellow hilt and a 3-pronged blade. Flying Thunder God kunai. I have a whole bunch with me. He handed it to her, and she took it. My dad somehow used these to teleport, but he left me a letter saying I'd have to learn Fuinjutsu to understand how. The Hiraishin, Hinata breathed. The Flying Thunder God Jutsu. She handed the kunai back. That's an S-rank jutsu that only Hokage have ever learned. It's legendary. Naruto waved his hand. Keep it, I have spares. Besides, unless I learn the jutsu, it's just a really cool kunai. Thanks, Naruto. She smiled, and stashed the kunai in her own weapons pouch. Asuma passed the genin and Tazuna to lead the group out of Konoha. Come on, everyone, let's pick up the pace a little, he said as he lit a cigarette. The same tailwind currently blowing Naruto's Haori around would also carry his cigarette smoke, so he had to lead the group. Naruto grinned with pride when they passed the gates of the village, and nudged Hinata with his elbow. This is my first time leaving Konoha. What about you, Hinata? It's a first for me too, she answered softly. Hey, Naruto. Kiba stepped up beside his teammate and nudged him. You know that thing's way too big on you, right? Like, way too big. So, he replied casually, swishing the Haori which reached down to his ankles and almost touched the ground. It still looks cool, ya know. Well, yeah, Kiba admitted. But, look. There's a reason shinobi associate long coats with untouchable badasses, okay. Pull a kunai out of your hip pouch. Naruto shrugged and pushed his coat aside, reaching under it to retrieve the kunai. Okay, you see the problem, right? Long coats make it harder to reach your gear, plus they weigh you down and provide a way for an opponent to grab you. So wearing one doesn't make you a strong ninja, you have to be a strong ninja to get away with wearing one. Discover more. Books. Books and literature. Alright, I see your point, Naruto groaned loudly. It's just, I only found out who my parents were yesterday, ya know. Besides, this is our first mission and it's just AC rank. Let me have my fun just this once. Discover more. Books and literature. Books. Okay. Kiba answered placatingly. Mark my words though. One day it's gonna be either you or that coat that gets shredded in a fight, so don't get too attached to it. They continued to chat for several hours, until that afternoon Naruto spotted something unusual ahead. It's summer, it hasn't rained in weeks, and the ground around us is dry, so what's with those two puddles? He drew a Hiraishin kunai. Hey, Hinata, how are you with kunai these days? Huh, we trained with kunai a week ago. Naruto, what are you thinking? She pulled out the kunai he had given her. I'll show you. What should we aim for? See that thing ahead of us? He pointed, and Hinata's eyes widened. His heart skipped a beat. She sees them. Aim for that. That disguise is a ninjutsu, no doubt about it. Enemy shinobi. She threw her kunai, and Naruto did the same. A kunai stabbed into each of the puddles, getting the attention of Asuma, Kiba and Tazuna. One merely turned red with blood, but the other transformed into a very angry ninja with a kunai in his left shoulder. You bastards! You killed my brother! He lunged forward in a blind rage, armed with a metal-clawed gauntlet on his right arm. Attached to the gauntlet was a chain covered in blades that trailed out uselessly behind him. Naruto shuddered at the feeling of helplessness that was suffocating him. What is this? A genjutsu? No, I can barely breathe. The ninja sprinted toward him furiously, his clawed arm raised for an attack. It's killing intent. I've never felt it before, it can't be simulated in training. He's going to kill me. 8 trigrams. Hinata lunged past Naruto and poked the missing nin in the chest twice, once with each index finger. 2 palms. She poked him in each shoulder. 4 palms. A poke to the forehead, solar plexus, right hip, and left cheek. 8 palms. She leapt away from her stunned opponent, and withdrew an ordinary kunai from the holster on her right thigh, throwing it directly into the missing nin's throat. He was replaced by a mossy log and a puff of smoke. Asuma put out his cigarette and leapt into the trees. He returned after roughly a minute with an unconscious missing nin over his shoulder. Tazuna. The bridge builder jumped at his name being called so sharply. Asuma dropped the beaten shinobi at his feet, and pointed at the surviving demon brother. Explain this. Now. Naruto shivered, his eyes wide and locked on the missing nin's limp form. I couldn't even move, he stepped toward his sensei numbly. Naruto-kun. Hinata laid a hand on his shoulder. Just take a deep breath, relax, he did this, and she smiled. It's all right, Naruto. It's over. I couldn't move, Hinata. I just froze. He looked down at the haori he wore, which he suddenly felt unworthy of. What if this happens to me every time? Killing intent affects everyone differently, Naruto-kun. Remember, we learned that in the academy. Some people freeze the first time, but it almost never stays with a trained shinobi beyond that. Next time, you'll be ready for it. Naruto looked up and smiled shakily. Thanks Hinata. You were amazing, by the way. The 8 trigrams, it was awesome. She smiled and blushed. Thanks. I've only reached 8 palms, but one day, I'll get to 64. Tazuna spent the next few minutes recounting his story, explaining his quest, Getu's villainy, and A-rank missions being far above what the Land of Waves could afford. I'm not sorry for what I did. An entire country, my home, is relying on me to build my bridge and save them, so damned if I wouldn't do this all over again. Please, help me. I can pay you for an A rank once your mission is complete. Wave has vast potential for exporting luxuries, and the international market knows that. When the bridge is built, they'll be lining up to buy our goods, our economy will explode. I can't just accept a deal like that, Tazuna. I'd need the approval of the Hokage, but I can make you a deal for now. We'll accept C rank pay to take you to the land of waves, and send a message to Konoha upon our arrival. Ideally, that means we'll return home and be replaced by a squad of Junin or even the Anbu Black Ops. Asuma lit a fresh cigarette. That's the best I can offer you, no matter how much I sympathize with your intentions. Tazuna nodded. It's enough. Building that bridge means more to me than anything, and I don't care who keeps me alive until the job's done. If the Kyuubi no Kitsune offered me the finished bridge in exchange for my soul, I'd make that deal in a heartbeat. Naruto sneezed. That won't be necessary, and Biju don't buy souls, Asuma replied, and glanced at Naruto. The blonde genin was stooping to pet a pure white rabbit that was remarkably comfortable around people. Everyone, get ready to fight. That rabbit belongs to someone nearby. Shinobi use animals like this as messengers and occasional distractions. Naruto stood and drew a Hiraishin kunai. Kiba pulled Akamaru out of the collar of his hoodie and set him on the ground, and Hinata activated her Byakugan. Naruto brought the kunai to his mouth and declared, "Wind release, wind blade." He breathed out chakra in a steady stream of wind, creating a scimitar-like blade of wind chakra around the kunai, and wielded the newly formed sword with both hands. I won't freeze up like that ever again. Never. Whoever's out there, I don't care how much killing intent you hit me with. I won't falter, I won't give up, and I won't freeze like a coward. Believe it. An evil laugh echoed throughout the forest around them. Hidden mist jutsu. The air grew thick with white mist, and Naruto bared his teeth in frustration and suppressed fear. Hinata. He called, "Can you hear me?" "I'm right here," she answered, mere feet away. They were completely unable to see each other. Damn it. We can't fight in this. He raised the sword over his head and gathered his chakra, slower than he could with his hands not occupied with his weapon. Wind release. Wind scar. He brought the weapon down, but before his sword could touch the ground and release the jutsu, a massive sword intercepted his swing. Naruto found himself staring into the masked face of Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the hidden mist. Thought you'd blow away my mist with the wind release, huh kid? Not bad, but you're not the first to think of it. Zabuza chuckled darkly. The wind blade and wind scar are nice little jutsu, too. I take it Konoha genin aren't quite as pathetic as I've heard. Shut up. Naruto barked, and pushed Zabuza away, though it took extreme physical effort to budge one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. Oh, I get it. You lost it in front of the demon brothers, and now your little ego's bruised. Do you even know who I am, kid? I said shut up. Naruto lunged with his sword, but Zabuza knocked the ethereal weapon aside with total ease. The wind blade was dispersed, leaving Naruto with just the kunai inside. Naruto, stand down. Team, protect Tazuna, and I'll deal with this guy. Asuma produced his signature daggers and engaged Zabuza, pushing Naruto aside to do so. This is bad. Zabuza Momochi is easily an S-rank missing nin. I don't stand a chance. In fact, Kakashi Hatake might be the only Junin in Konoha who could take him. But if I distract him, I might be able to buy the team enough time to escape. Wind release. A racing wind. A strong but harmless wind blew out from Asuma in all directions, pushing the mist away a considerable distance. Hinata sighed in relief. Being a Hyuga meant her ability to see an opponent was even more precious. Naruto looked at his teammates over his shoulder, then back to Asuma, who was battling Zabuza with 2 daggers, and losing ground with worrying speed. He can't do this alone. Kiba, use any ranged jutsu you've got. Hinata, use the water scattershot. Naruto threw his kunai, and Zabuza deflected it, but Naruto started making hand seals while he did. Wind release. Air bullet. Naruto cried, and shot a blast of deadly, forceful wind from his outstretched hands. Zabuza disengaged, leaping out of Asuma's melee range to deal with the threat of an A-rank jutsu. He batted the attack aside with his famous sword Kubikiri Boucho, but in the brief moment his vision was obscured by his own sword. Hinata began spitting out small blasts of water the size of phoenix flowers by the dozen. Zabuza scowled as he was forced to dodge and block the pesky little attacks, as he thought of them. Asuma, with renewed courage, dashed toward him with his daggers coated in chakra. Zabuza blocked his attacks, and detected one of the blonde brat's weird kunai flying at him. He leaned back, out of the path of the kunai, and smirked at Asuma, who stumbled forward. Zabuza planted a kick in Asuma's gut, and the Konoha Junin fell. Now, Naruto grinned, and threw a second kunai. Zabuza saw it coming and moved out of its path long before it reached him, but Naruto shouted, "Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu." Zabuza's eyes narrowed at the unfamiliar name. The jutsu had been created by the third Hokage and was known only in Konoha. Even then, only a few instructional scrolls existed, and the Hyuga clan's copy had mysteriously disappeared about a year ago. No one had noticed. The Hyuga dedicated themselves solely to their legendary taijutsu. The kunai copied itself as it flew, into no less than 300 deadly kunai which all kept the momentum and aim of the original. Zabuza winced, and took cover behind the blade of his massive sword. A few kunai grazed him, but it was of little concern. "Not bad, brat." Zabuza laughed, and glanced down at Asuma. Naruto had made sure every kunai passed over his sensei safely. "But I'm still standing. I'm still gonna kill you all," he finished in a low and menacing voice. The missing nin raised his sword with both hands, preparing to bring it down on a prone Asuma. As he began his swing, Naruto shouted out the name of another jutsu. Wind release. Air bullet. Zabuza swore as his blade descended. "I can't dodge mid-swing." He relaxed, however, when he saw that the air bullet's trajectory was off, and that was his mistake. Rather than hitting Zabuza, it struck Kubikiri Boucho, sending it and its wielder spinning wildly through the air, until they struck a tree with enough force to knock out the infamous missing nin. Zabuza's hands went limp and released his sword. Asuma got to his feet, lunging toward Zabuza as fast as his legs could move, which was quite fast. He raised his right hand, and with it a chakra-wreathed dagger, aiming to stab and finish the unconscious demon of the hidden mist. Two steel needles, however, reached their target before Asuma was even halfway to Zabuza. The missing nin's eyes flew open, bloodshot and terrified, but the Senbon were already in his neck. Zabuza felt himself die with perfect, nightmarish clarity. A masked Anbu, from Kiri judging by his mask, revealed himself as the attacker by emerging from the trees. "I've been tracking this bastard for weeks. Thanks for your help." Asuma simply hunched over and coughed a bit of blood. The pain from Zabuza's kick had finally cut through his adrenaline rush. Damn, at least it wasn't a kick in the balls again. Naruto let his hands fall to his sides, grinning. "Thanks for your help," he replied. "I mean, we could have finished him, but thanks anyway. I did it. I didn't freeze up at all." He beamed and flipped a thumbs up. "We had this guy beat, believe it. And I didn't even use up a quarter of my chakra. At this rate I'll be Hokage in no time. I feel so powerful." "Damn right," Kiba added. "3 freaking genin. I don't know who that guy was, but when we get back we'll be legends. But I gotta learn some ranged jutsu, and fast." Hinata remained silent, but she too was smiling. "You know what?" the tracker nin asked. "I really believe you. You beat him, and I'll make sure you get sent a part of the bounty. You earned it, kids." The Anbu slung Zabuza's limp body over one shoulder, and retreated over the treetops without saying goodbye. Asuma looked up in shock and alarm. Damn it! He fell to his knees and pounded a fist into the ground. "He took the body. So?" Naruto asked, clueless. "So, he was an imposter. Kiri's Anbu tracker nin are trained to incinerate the bodies of killed missing nin, Every time, without fail. They only take the heads, and it's considered treason to so much as pick up the body. Asuma punched the earth again. Zabuza, he said slowly, is alive. Zabuza woke, and immediately groaned at the pain of 2 needles, still embedded in his neck. He reached up and ripped one out, then the other. Haku, you cold little bastard. You could have at least pulled the needles out. He sat up and looked around, finding himself to be in a shack so ruined, he could see between each individual rotting plank. He had been laid on a table that looked ready to collapse under his weight. Haku, behind you. Zabuza turned, and saw his fellow missing nin seated in a comfortable chair, the only piece of furniture in the shack that looked serviceable. His fake Anbu mask sat in his lap. How the hell could you let yourself get beaten by one Junin? You're getting soft. It wasn't the Junin. He was no problem, but that blonde kid. What? Haku put on an exaggerated look of surprise. You didn't get beat by a Junin, but 3 genin. Konoha genin, no less. Don't push me, Haku. Zabuza scowled through his mask, and turned away so he could properly slouch forward. He ran his hands through his spiky black hair. That kid, the blonde genin. Of everyone there, not counting me, he was the closest thing to a real ninja. Cheap shots, double teaming, strategy. He protected his team but didn't let them slow him down, didn't hesitate to shoot when his sensei was right next to me. And aiming for my sword instead of me, clever. Zabuza chuckled darkly. Shame I've gotta kill him, and all his friends too. It's a waste really, but better him than us. I don't believe this, Haku teased. You really are going soft. Bullshit. You can call me soft if the kid lives, which he won't. Just because he reminds me of myself doesn't mean I won't eviscerate him. Asuma found Naruto and Hinata sitting on a boulder, taking a break from their training to share a few boxes of the local takeout ramen. Despite the events of the previous few days, they were smiling, as was usual for them in this situation. Asuma was halfway through his latest cigarette, and he'd decided to bring 2 months' supply of them, just in case this mission lasted far longer than expected. He looked around at the kunai embedded in large trees, the smaller saplings ripped out of the ground with wind and water release, along with logs clearly chopped to bits with a wind blade kunai. Not bad, he observed, and blew out a small cloud of smoke. Hey, Asuma-sensei, Naruto greeted without looking up from his meal. Hey, Naruto. Asuma took a seat on the boulder, with Naruto between him and Hinata. Can you explain something to me? I guess so, Naruto mumbled, only half paying attention. It's illegal for you to know the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto choked on his ramen and started coughing. Where'd you learn my father's jutsu? When he was done choking, Naruto steeled himself and looked his sensei in the eye. I'd rather be executed than tell you that, he said, deadly serious. Ah, thank you for that perfectly clear explanation. Asuma smirked. Naruto went white. The only reason for you to hide that secret would be to protect a friend who gave you the jutsu. Hinata started blushing faintly, since she knew where Asuma was going with this. Specifically, a friend in one of the noble clans that were given scrolls of the jutsu. You only have one such friend, and she happens to be from the only clan that would have little interest in that scroll, since they focus on taijutsu. Hinata's blush spread over her cheeks and darkened. Don't worry about it, though. Since the Uzumaki clan has an adult member once again, they're to be considered a valid noble clan, albeit one with little influence in Konoha. If there isn't already a copy of the scroll in your clan's library, there will be soon. Asuma smirked at their expressions. I gotta say I'm impressed by the devotion and loyalty you two have for each other. Hinata, you stole top secret documents from your own clan, and I doubt Naruto even asked you to. There's no way for him to have even heard about the jutsu before you brought it to him. And you, Naruto, seemed legitimately ready to die, just to protect that secret for Hinata. He edged his head slightly to the side. This seems to run a little deeper than 2 genin working as a team. What do you mean? Naruto asked. At the same time Hinata shakily mumbled, it was nothing, I was just helping AF friend. Oh, come off it. Asuma chuckled. How long have you been dating? 2 years now. Hinata jumped at that. Naruto quickly replied, no way. If I was dating Hinata, I'd be taking her somewhere nicer for lunch. Ichiraku ramen is great, but it's not, it doesn't fit. Naruto looked down thoughtfully. Come to think of it, I'm a rich noble Uzumaki heir now. I could afford to do that. Hey, Hinata. Why yes, Naruto-kun. I saw this really fancy restaurant a little while ago called Shirokuden. You wanna go there for dinner tonight? I mean, Geitu's probably the owner but. He cut himself off when he saw Hinata slump forward and fall to the ground, spilling what was left of the ramen she'd been furiously eating. What the? Hinata, are you okay? Asuma shook his head and laughed. Thank me later. I gotta go train Kiba in the fire release. Since when does Kiba have fire release? Since maybe 10 minutes ago, when I gave him a chakra receptive paper. Asuma turned to walk away, calling over his shoulder, oh, and don't worry, Hinata should be fine. She just fainted. Asuma returned to Tezuna's house, and found his remaining student arguing furiously with Tezuna's grandson. That's a coward's way of thinking. You don't give up if you wanna be the alpha male. You know what you are. You're a meek little omega wolf, born to be the lowest of the low. You've got no spine, brat. That's not how it works at all. Inari shouted back. People aren't wolves. I know a whole clan of ninjas that would disagree with you. We're just the same as wolves. We hunt and thrive in packs, we have alphas like me and omegas like you, and we spend our whole lives looking for 3 things. Power, a mate, and the next meal. Don't you ever forget that, kid. We're exactly like wolves. Geitu's too strong, Inari said in a low voice. He'll kill you all. He's not a wolf, he's a demon. He might be a demon, but I'm a frickin' ninja, kid. I like my chances. Kiba turned to see Asuma approach. Hey, Asuma-sensei. How are Naruto and Hinata doing? Asuma suppressed a chuckle. They're doing pretty good. Inari started crying loudly, and ran away. What got into him? He's a wimp, it's that simple. Kiba glanced over his shoulder in distaste. I think he might grow out of it, though. There's hope for him. Poor kid, Asuma observed. Living here, under Geitu, it can't have been easy. Kiba nodded. We can always learn to rise up, though, to be strong. No matter how young we are or where we grow up, we can learn to be strong. I just hope he figures that out one day. Akamaru gave a soft bark of agreement. So, fire release. What's the plan with my training? We'll start with a basic fireball jutsu. It's a simple, effective projectile, meant for damaging or outright killing the enemy, a staple fire release jutsu that even Junin with fire release will use. It's easy on your chakra and still deadly. It was dusk, the sun having just slipped past the horizon, but the Shirokuden's white, polished walls still gleamed. It was like a temple, or a palace out of legend. Being an expensive and luxurious restaurant, it was near the heart of the tourists' district Geitu had ordered built and cut off from the rest of Wave. It was a massive source of income for the corrupt businessman, but since Naruto planned to overthrow him by the end of the month, he had no qualms about paying for one little meal here. Hinata stared blankly up at the extravagant, 2-story restaurant. She and Naruto stood side by side. The walls in front of them were concrete and covered completely in white marble, so perfect that Hinata found herself looking for signs of a genjutsu. Naruto-kun. Naruto looked away from the Kyuden and back to Hinata, who was blushing and poking her index fingers together, for the first time in nearly a year. What's wrong, Hinata? She trailed off and looked down. Is this a date? She winced and blushed even deeper. Never mind. Let's just have a nice night. Naruto nodded. Yeah, it'll be great. They made their way to the entrance, 2 doors of solid white marble, thin so they weren't too heavy, and engraved with the image of a phoenix with wings spread wide. The entire lower floor wasn't a restaurant at all, but a forum of some kind. Naruto whistled as he looked around. The inside wasn't genjutsu white as the outside was. The floor beneath them was hardwood, spotless and polished until it looked like glass. In each corner of the room was a fountain, in the shape of a gilded lion rearing over a pool of glistening blue water. The water trickled out between each lion's bare teeth. In the center of the room was a tightly spiraling staircase to the next floor, with water flowing down around the staircase. An arch was installed over the base of the stairs to deflect the water for people to walk through. As soon as Naruto and Hinata spotted it, however, they saw a waiter dressed in a black linen robe, who was approaching through the arch and didn't look happy. "Hey," Naruto called with a grin and a wave, table for two. "How old are you, brat?" The waiter glared at him. 10. "You need either a reservation or 1.5 million Ryu cash to dine here." "I'm 12, Naruto replied, "and I don't like your tone." He turned to Hinata, and whispered very subtly, "Go along with this," and winked. He turned back to the waiter with feigned but convincing fury, channeling the insulting words Zabuza had spoken to him mere days ago. "Do you even know who we are?" "Should I care?" The waiter replied sarcastically. "You're dressed like commoners, am I to assume you're in disguise or something?" "Why, yes, you are. How else could we stroll through Wave without being swarmed by the masses?" "I am." He paused to consider an alias, but managed to make it sound dramatic. "Ichigo of the Kurosaki clan, and this is my fiancée Rukia of the Kuchiki clan." "You said 1.5 million Ryu, correct? I suppose I could just hand it over. It's petty cash to me after all, but to be quite blunt, I don't like you. You called me a brat. So," he declared, and paused again, "I'll try this again. Table for two, please, and after our meal, you are to bring Gato, or whoever it is that runs this establishment, to our table that we might speak to him. He really ought to have a list of noble clan names handed out to you people." The waiter blanched. Kurosaki, Kuchiki, the names do sound a bit familiar, some far-off noble clans, maybe. My apologies, Kurosaki-sama, Kuchiki Heim, but the Shiro Kyuden is black tie only. I have to ask you to leave and return in formal wear. Leave? I think not. It's getting late, and speaking for myself, I'm quite hungry. Don't you agree, Rukia? Rukia nodded. "Yes, it's best you simply escort us to our meal," she said with as much steel in her voice as she could. Naruto clasped his hands together, and Hinata followed suit, getting the idea. Transformation jutsu. They called in stereo, and the waiter blinked in surprise. Ninjutsu. Are they shinobi nobles, or did their parents buy them ninja tutors or something? Naruto had transformed into a version of himself wearing a deep orange, unadorned robe, with a white belt tied in a bow at his waist and white trim at his collar, wrists and ankles. Hinata's clothes were replaced by a pristine white kimono with subtle lavender swirling designs. "Is this acceptable?" Ichigo asked. "It's fine," the waiter replied after hesitating. "Table for two, right this way." He led them up the spiral staircase, and sat them at a table comfortably secluded in the corner, with a view out the window to the ocean surrounding the land of waves. "Kei Kurosaki?" Hinata finally asked when they were alone. "It's a reference to a manga I read once." Naruto looked down at the table and smiled thoughtfully. "You know, my parents decided I wasn't supposed to get access to the Uzumaki clan funds until I was a legal adult. I think I know why now." He nodded to the waiter in the distance. "If I could have talked to people like that from birth, with no parents to keep me in line, imagine the kind of brat I'd be today, assuming I hadn't bankrupted the clan by this point." He looked around at the upper floor of Shiro Kyuden, which had a distinctly Western theme to it. The place was lit with chandeliers and softly scented candles, and the tables and chairs had legs carved in elaborate swirls. Each table was stained dark, varnished, and polished, to be beautiful and easy to wipe clean. The table faintly showed the rings of the tree it had been made from, fitting since it was circular. "What's this?" He reached out and plucked a white ceramic bottle from the dead center of the table. It's sake, Hinata explained. Expensive restaurants sometimes provide free alcohol, so their rich customers are less conscious of how much expensive food they're buying. It's a low tactic, but effective. I don't get it. How does that work? Naruto, don't you know what alcohol is? She took the bottle gently, and set it down where it had been. It's a drink intended for adult consumption, that dulls your mind slightly, and gradually takes away your inhibitions. Huh. He picked up one of the ivory saucers next to the bottle, filled it with sake, and fired back his first drink ever. Oh dear Kami, that's disgusting, he choked. You're not supposed to drink it that fast. Hinata said, shocked. Watch. She poured a saucer of the alcohol, and a single sniff told her it was sake of the same quality Hyuga nobles would buy. She brought it to her lips and sipped it delicately. A rosy blush spread over her cheeks in a matter of seconds, and she giggled. I can only handle one saucer of this stuff before bad things start happening, she said in an eerily cheerful voice. Naruto put his empty saucer over the bottle as a lid. Bad things. Hinata mumbled something very quietly. Naruto only caught the phrases, drunken fist, dad's birthday, and, ruined the whole party. He decided not to press the issue. From the look in Hinata's eyes he could see it wasn't a happy memory. The same waiter from before brought them 2 scrolls, his demeanor markedly changed. He actually smiled when he noticed the alcohol-induced blush on their cheeks. Kurosaki-sama, Kuchiki-hime, here are your menus. I'm sure you'll be happy to hear that Geto-sama has accepted your invitation, and will meet you after your meal. He's a polite man and will not intrude on your romantic evening, which I personally hope you enjoy. Your cooperation is appreciated, Naruto replied stiffly. I would also, the waiter continued, like to apologize for my behavior earlier tonight. It was an error I will take great care not to repeat. Good. Naruto unfurled the scroll and read through the menu, and the waiter bowed. I will return in a few minutes, when you have made your decision, he said, and retreated hastily. I kind of feel bad about doing this to him, Naruto admitted. I feel evil, you know. Maybe I should apologize when we leave. Sorry, Naruto-kun, but I really think that's a bad idea. It could blow our cover completely. He nodded solemnly. Good point. But why did you do it? If he'd seen through your act, we might have had to fight, and that would risk the mission. I mean, it was convincing, but why put that much on the line? Naruto looked down sheepishly. Sorry, Hinata, I hadn't thought of it. I just wanted to give you a good time. Her eyes widened, and she blushed. You did that, risked our lives, to take me to dinner. Ah, man, he mumbled, even more apologetic. Now I feel really bad. I could have gotten us both killed. No, Hinata replied firmly. Don't think like that. It was reckless, maybe, but it worked. And it was really sweet of you. The blush from the alcohol darkened sharply, and she murmured something incoherent, before opening her menu and finding something that looked suitably delicious. Naruto stared down at his own scroll, squinting in his confusion. Huh, nothing here is anything like ramen. I have no idea what to pick. Just skip straight to dessert, Hinata advised. I know plenty of Hyuga nobles who do that all the time. In fact, I think I'll try it myself. As if on cue, the waiter returned, smiling amicably. Have you made your decision, Kuchiki-hime, Kurosaki-sama? Yes, Hinata returned the smile. I'll have this foreign confection. She pointed to the image on the scroll. Cheesecake. I'm not at all familiar with the name. An excellent choice, he said with a nod, and scribbled it down. And you, Kurosaki-sama? HN. Naruto nodded thoughtfully. I think I'll try it as well. Bring 2 of them. The waiter bowed and left the 2 to their own devices. Naruto asked, once they were alone, any idea what we just ordered? I never looked at what it was. It's, how should I put this? She stared at where her scroll menu had been. From what I read, it's a brick of heavy, sweet soft candy, made with a lot of milk and sugar. It's really rich, a small one should be enough for the whole meal. She paused, then added, it's impossible to eat with chopsticks, you need a foreign utensil called a fork. I've seen those before, they're not hard to use, but it's a strange concept. Almost 20 minutes later, the waiter laid their meal before them, and Naruto grinned down at the cheesecake. It smells delicious. The waiter inclined his head with a soft smile. As he turned away, Naruto caught a glimpse of the smile turning into a sneer. Rukia, hold on a moment, Ichigo said, with a subtle hint of urgency. As the waiter left, Naruto reverted to his true character. Let me check for poison. I don't trust this. Hinata's eyes widened, and she set down the fork that was almost to her mouth. Pea poison. I think that guy got the Bleach reference. I don't understand. Our names. They're a reference to a manga, and I guess that waiter made the connection after he let us in. Naruto made a hand seal, and held one hand over each cheesecake. Yeah, there it is, a slow-acting poison coupled with a truth serum. Truth serum. Hinata blinked. Of course. Geitu's going to come out here and talk to us, expecting us to confess we're shinobi, and tell him if we have allies here, or a mission to kill him. Typical manga villain's move, too, Naruto added. Rather than send a proxy or even a convincing body double, he'll come right out here and meet the two people he knows are the ninja heroes. Well, actually we can only get that far if he knows we've eaten the food. And we will. Ah, medical ninjutsu. I never was much good with it, Naruto admitted, but I can eliminate a poison when it's concentrated to one place like in food. With a person it's different, flowing all around in the blood, so much harder. He held his hands out over the food again, and sent a soft green light out from his palms. Quote. There. To be safe, he added, dodge that spot there. He pointed to the center of the cake. That's where the poison was injected. That's impressive, Naruto-kun. Not really. Anyone with the slightest training in medical ninjutsu could manage it, even if they ate as bad as I did. Thanks though. He took a bite of his cake. Get past the poison, and this stuff is pretty good. Hinata sighed as she took a bite as well. Not bad at all. When they were half finished their meal, a short, balding man in a Western business suit approached them, snatching a chair from a nearby, unoccupied table and placing it between Naruto and Hinata. He sat, smirking with satisfaction. I see you've enjoyed your meal, he sneered. Geitu, I presume, Naruto replied coldly, then took another bite of his cake. Yes, the meal is quite nice. Geitu chuckled. So, Ichigo Kurosaki, what brings you to the land of waves? Oh, we've mostly been sightseeing. Naruto looked him in the eye with a false smile and waved his hand. I couldn't help but notice the impoverished and oppressed people that surround this little tourist's attraction. Who are you two, really? I know you're not who you say you are. Naruto glanced at Hinata, who nodded subtly. My name, and this is the truth, is Naruto Uzumaki. I'm a genin of Konoha, and sole heir to the Uzumaki clan, former main clan of the ninja village of Uzushio, in the land of whirling tides. I suppose you could say we were royalty there. And your little girlfriend? Geitu sneered, liking where this was going. I can speak for myself, Hinata said with a piercing glare. I'm Hinata Hyuga, also a genin of Konoha. I'm a princess of the Hyuga clan, wielder of the Byakugan Dujutsu, and I can kill you by poking you in any one of the 361 chakra points on your body, which I can see quite clearly. Naruto, oblivious though he was, clearly noticed her not objecting to the term girlfriend. Geitu nodded at her introduction, eyebrows raised over his black sunglasses. And why are you really here? Why? Hinata echoed. To enjoy this delicious cheesecake, of course. She held up a forkful of the confection, and popped it in her mouth. So you're not here to kill me? Geitu asked. Straight to the point then, Hinata replied. Naruto saw the opportunity, and seized it. No, we're not here to kill you. That said, I wouldn't mind ending you at all. You're a blatantly rude little man, Since you sent your waiter to tell us you'd meet us after our date, then interrupted us without warning. Date. Hinata turned to look at Naruto, her heart pounding immediately. Did he just say date? Satisfied, Gato withdrew a small bottle from the inside pocket of his suit. I can't have guests dying in my restaurant. This is the antidote for the poison that was in your meal. He stood. Naruto called. Wait. Gato froze mid-step. Consider the fact you're alive payment enough for this meal, particularly since you poisoned it. Gato turned, fury written on his face, but he forced himself back into a cool, smug demeanor. Fine. Get out of here, he spat. Naruto stood, and Hinata followed suit. He took her hand, drawing a quiet gasp from her, and the two walked side by side toward the staircase. Naruto made certain to knock his shoulder against Gato's. The short man was no taller than the 12-year-old genin, so the hit connected and knocked him aside. He growled, but held his peace. Little ninja brat, I hope you choke on that antidote. As soon as they were outside, the transformation jutsu dispelled, and their clothes returned to normal. Naruto looked up at the clear night sky, and the moon shining in it. You know, that was pretty exciting. Maybe we should do it again sometime, MMF. Hinata considered pulling back, breaking off the kiss a moment after it began, but she was frozen in place. She couldn't move forward or back, she simply stood where she was and thought, what have I done? I kissed him. I'm kissing Naruto-kun. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't. It was too early. I never even told him I. She shut her eyes tighter, flinching from the thought. Her heart was in her throat, no longer with excitement but with unbridled terror. I never told him, but he said, girlfriend, date. The fear receded for a moment, then came flooding back through her thoughts. I rushed it and I just ruined everything. After this, he won't even be able to look at me. She opened her eyes wide, finally realizing that he was kissing her back. Now that she was looking, she saw that he was just as bright red as she was, and shaking slightly just like her. He's scared too. He's like me. He doesn't know what to do here. She sighed softly, closing her eyes once more. And one of us has to figure that out, we can't just stand here forever. But now that her fear was gone, now that Naruto was kissing her back and everything felt happy again, she mused, I guess I wouldn't mind. She pulled away slowly, hesitantly, looking down and blushing a brighter red than she had ever before. Now that she'd moved back and his eyes were open, he could see her again, and he'd never looked at her like this before. That was the best night of my life, she breathed, hating her stutter more than ever before. She consoled herself at least with the knowledge that Naruto was used to it by now, he could follow her trembling voice without much effort. Still, it was just one more reason to blush after all the others thus far. Naruto scratched the back of his head nervously. Mine too, he admitted after a long pause. So, any ideas for where we could go next time? Naruto and Hinata lay stretched out in a bed of grass, deep in the forest of the land of waves. Their forehead protectors rested over their eyes to blot out the bright noon sunlight. Their heads and shoulders touched gently, and they smiled up at the sky serenely. This, Naruto decided, was the happiest he'd ever been. It had been only 2 weeks since their date at the Shirokyuden, but Hinata had already begun to come further out of her shell than ever before. Whenever they trained, she'd removed her hoodie. The t-shirt beneath that bore the Hyuga emblem was the only thing without short sleeves he'd ever seen her in. At first, she'd been blushing as though she had just stripped to her underwear, but gradually, she'd gotten used to it. The light breeze brushing her bare arms had become something enjoyable. An hour ago, they'd been developing and practicing a new supplementary ninjutsu, but there were no signs of damage to the ground or the trees. And yet, when it was complete, it would be a fearsome weapon. The sound of crunching dead leaves was audible with their ears so close to the ground. Both of them realized someone was coming, and the sound didn't fit Kiba or Asuma. Both would either have heavier footfalls, or none at all if they were being stealthy. This was a child their age, small and light on his or her feet. Hinata whispered, Byakugan. She saw a slim, pale girl with long black hair enter her field of vision with a wicker basket. A closer inspection revealed a knife in the basket, suitable for cutting the stems of herbs but also with a potential for killing. The girl was giving Naruto and Hinata a look of confusion as she approached. The girl stopped at the feet of the two shinobi. Quote. Excuse me, but, what are you two doing out here? Naruto sat up, catching his forehead protector as it fell from his eyes. Hinata did the same, but deactivated her Byakugan first. Just relaxing, Naruto replied. But why here? Hinata blinked. That voice. I know it from Samui here. We were training before this. We're shinobi, Naruto said proudly, not recognizing the missing nin without a mask. We could have hurt somebody if we did it near civilians. Shinobi, the girl echoed softly. But you're so young, no older than me. We're trained from childhood, Hinata answered, because we learn best at a young age. Imagine when you learned to speak. It was easy because you were born into it. Where have I heard this voice before? My name is Haku, the girl introduced herself. I'm Hinata. This is Naruto, she replied courteously. So, what brings you out here, Haku? The girl paused. I have devoted my life to help one who is precious to me. He is very sick, and I'm here to find the herbs to cure him. Naruto nodded, and stood. Someone precious to her. I can respect that. We'll help. What herbs are you looking for? Haku took a small, worn book out of the basket, and flipped it open to a marked page. This is the most important one, she showed him the page. Hinata stood and looked at it as well. But that's, shinobi use it on poisoned wounds as a substitute for medical ninjutsu. It counteracts paralyzing and weakening toxins, not lethal ones, and not illness. Are you sure that's not the wrong herb? Hinata asked delicately. What exactly is this man suffering from? Listen closely. Listen to her voice. He came home one day with a bloody scratch on his neck. This time, Hinata got it. It's you, she shouted, and stepped back to initiate a gentle fist stance. Zabuza's partner. Naruto's eyes widened, and he started making hand seals immediately. Hinata's right, it's her. Wind release. Wind scar. Ice release. Frost shield. The missing nin stopped Naruto's jutsu effortlessly, raising a sheet of ice-like glass from the earth. The small blades of wind scattered harmlessly against the shield, which then crumbled. Please understand, I don't want to kill anyone. Even though Zabuza-sama is far more precious to me, no life is worthless. Naruto's and Hinata's eyes widened. That power, it's so much like our snow release, is it a Kekkei Genkei? Heads up, punk. Everyone looked up to a tree branch high above, where Kiba and Akamaru were perched. Fire release. Phoenix flower jutsu. He ignited his breath with chakra and blew forth 100 small fireballs at Haku. The missing nin deflected and dodged all of them with her frost shield and her speed. Great fireball jutsu. He launched a larger fireball that briefly consumed his opponent in an explosion. Kiba flung himself off the branch, using the transformation jutsu as he did to turn into a small rock and land with a thump on the ground. Haku emerged from the fireball as it died down, still unharmed. Please stop this. I didn't come to fight, I just want the herbs. Naruto and Hinata briefly faltered at the desperation in Haku's tone, but steeled themselves when the missing nin reached into her basket and pulled out a pouch, filled not with herbs but with senbon. She charged toward the Konoha shinobi, flinging handfuls of needles. Wind release. A racing wind. A blast of wind from Naruto scattered the senbon needles harmlessly. Kiba's transformation ceased, and he threw himself at Haku, spinning wildly. Passing Fang. He roared as he struck, sending Haku flying. Haku rolled to her feet, with a shield of ice levitating in front of her chest. Kiba threw a kunai at her, which likewise struck the shield harmlessly. He formed a hand seal sequence none of the other three ninja had seen before, and brought his index and middle fingers to his lips. Fire release. Ash pile burning. He blew out a steady stream of ash and gunpowder, from which Haku was forced to retreat. Kiba ced his teeth together, and the cloud of ash ignited into a fireball that momentarily blinded her. When Haku's vision cleared, 3 Kibas were sprinting toward her on all fours. The first punched her, but the fist passed straight through her, revealing itself to be a clone jutsu. Wind release. Air bullet. Haku turned to deal with the extremely deadly ninjutsu, allowing what she thought was another clone to strike her. Kiba sent her sprawling to the ground, and both of them fell past the air bullet. Kiba pulled back his fist to punch her again, but Haku shoved a fistful of Senbon into his gut, and he howled in pain. He rolled off of her and tried to pull the cluster of needles from his flesh, while Haku stood to confront the other 2 genin. The remaining clone punched her in the face, drawing blood from her lip. I'm not prepared to deal with this, Haku contemplated quietly. These herbs don't matter that much. I can resupply some other time, she thought, and called substitution. The remaining clone transformed into a white puppy that spun through the air, peeing on her as it did. Jutsu. He reappeared at the edge of the forest, in place of a log that had sat against an old, dying tree. Was that urine? He asked himself incredulously. Meanwhile, Kiba was sitting up, having pulled the Senbon out of his belly. Hinata set to work on healing the cluster of tiny wounds, which were together enough to be a danger to the Inuzuka genin. That was amazing, Kiba-kun. She beamed. To have come so far with the fire release after mere weeks of training. Yeah, it was pretty cool, huh? Kiba smirked, then winced at the pain in his abdomen. That last jutsu, the ash pile burning, it's strong, but it takes a lot out of me. Asuma-sensei said he made it up himself. He groaned, and Akamaru came to his side, whining in concern. Not bad for 2 weeks though, huh? I got that guy pretty good. Guy. Naruto and Hinata questioned in sync. The ice dude. Haku. Naruto shuddered. And I was thinking to myself, she was almost as pretty as Hinata. Yeah, he looked like a girl, I know, but nothing can fool an Inuzuka's nose. Guys and girls smell completely different. Kiba winced again at the pain, but then it receded. Okay. You're good to go, Hinata declared with a smile. You're lucky those were Senbon and not a kunai. I wouldn't have been able to repair that kind of wound. Thanks, Hinata-chan. Kiba stood, and picked up Akamaru, placing the white Ninken puppy inside his hoodie. Akamaru barked happily. I came out here to see how your training was coming along, but then I felt that third chakra signature. And showed up to save us, which was awesome, Naruto finished, and grinned. We could have handled him, he paused. But thanks anyway. It was really cool, believe it. Kiba nodded. So, did you guys pick up any new jutsu since we came here? Well, we came up with a few variations of existing jutsu, Hinata admitted. Naruto, should we show him one? Naruto drew a flying thunder god kunai, poked the air in front of himself, then dropped it. Hinata blinked once, then deciphered the hidden message and nodded. She drew her own kunai and threw it at a tree. She used a substitution on her own kunai mid-flight, and maintained its momentum, punching the air between herself and the tree to show the offensive potential of the jutsu. Naruto then drew a second kunai, poked toward himself, and let it drop, hitting the first with a clinking sound. Hinata nodded again, and he threw a kunai at a tree to her side, but she used a substitution to switch places with it. The kunai slammed into the tree while she reappeared past it. Kiba whistled. Not bad, he observed. You actually took the time to weaponize the substitution jutsu. It takes the enhanced vision of a Byakugan to do it consistently, but yes, Hinata admitted. I can use it to close in on an opponent and use my gentle fist, or seemingly pass through enemy weaponry unharmed. Ice release. Sealing ice dome. Everyone's eyes widened, and each of them tried to react, but it was too late. A sheet of ice grew up out of the ground, surrounding them from all directions and completing a dome around them in a matter of seconds. Haku's voice echoed inside the dome. I'm sorry, but Zabuza-sama must complete his mission unhindered by you. This dome will maintain itself until the air inside is depleted of oxygen past survivable levels. You will not die, but Tazuna will, and your sensei will likely join him. Please, forgive me, Naruto growled. You think this thing can hold us? If you break free, I will be forced to kill you. Think about that for a moment, no one wants that. Haku fell silent, and Naruto concluded that the missing nin had left. Wind scar. Naruto roared, and slapped his hands down on the ground. Blades of wind lashed out at the section of the dome in front of him, but they only chipped the surface. Damn it, Naruto-kun, wait, Hinata cried, as he was about to form an air bullet. This dome is made of ice, maybe Kiba can melt it with the fire release. I can try. Hold on. That's it. Naruto cried triumphantly. Kiba, you can use a fire jutsu to use up the air in here, while we hide in a water encampment from Hinata. The dome is set to come down once there's not enough oxygen to breathe. Kiba nodded. I know a jutsu that'll work. Hinata, get ready. But, Hinata paused. What if it's set to a specific time, not to measure the oxygen level in here? We'd kill ourselves. Maybe. Naruto looked down at his hands, and made a few seals. Wind release. Erasing wind. A blast of fresh air swept past her from Naruto, and she noticed that it didn't have a scent at all, unlike the air already in the dome which smelled of grass and ice. We can create our own fresh air inside the water encampment, and the dome shouldn't be able to detect it. Alright, let's do it. Kiba replied. Asuma-sensei and Tazuna-san are counting on us to save their lives. We can't waste time like this. They can't handle Zabuza and that ice guy without us. He made a short sequence of hand seals. Fire release. Grand Fireball Jutsu. He breathed out a plume of shimmering fire, which struck the wall of the dome and smoldered there. Naruto fanned the flames by shouting, Wind release, air bullet. That's enough, Hinata called. We can't risk burning ourselves to death in here. Water release. Water encampment jutsu. A small, thin dome of water sprang up around her feet, growing to consume her, Naruto, and Kiba with Akamaru. It didn't need to be thick to hold in the air, which made it easier for her. The second Hokage had been able to create a full water wall without an existing source of water, but she wasn't the Hokage. She was a genin, and to conserve her chakra she made use of the water in the ground. The flames spread over the grass, and smoke began to fill the dome. Hinata kept her hands clasped together in a seal to maintain the smaller dome of water around the genin. The ice dome remained unharmed, despite the chakra-fueled flames growing to fill it with smoke and heat. Wind release. Erasing wind. The gust of wind was indeed fresh, breathable air, but it tore through Hinata's wall of water. She whimpered with pain and exertion, trying to reform the bubble of water, but it wasn't meant for this purpose, and it collapsed. The three genin took in a breath of smoke, and fell. Kiba. Naruto wheezed, kill the flames. The Inuzuka did this with a simple wave of his hand, but the smoke and depleted air remained. Smoke rises, he coughed. Heads to the, he coughed again. Dirt. Naruto and Hinata dove to the ground shortly after he did. Akamaru leapt out of his hoodie so his partner could lay down without crushing him. Wind release. Erasing wind. The three of them savored the fresh air, clearing their lungs of as much smoke as possible. That, Ed, Kiba observed, panting. Akamaru whined, apparently agreeing. We can still do this. Hinata stood, and added, Byakugan. At once, her pale Dujutsu eyes scanned the entirety of the dome, searching for a weak point in the structure. Her first guess had already been proven right. The dome was laced with Haku's chakra. Now, look for the point where there's the least chakra in the structure. There. She memorized the spot, turned to face it, and turned off her Byakugan to conserve chakra. Hinata, what did you see? Naruto noticed her rapidly making hand seals with no sign of slowing down, and he began to recognize the pattern. His eyes widened as he realized what her new plan was. Naruto, Kiba, Akamaru, hold your breath, she ordered, and clasped her hands together in the final bird hand seal. Water release. Water dragon bullet jutsu. Hinata opened her mouth, and out of it exploded a torrent of water that took the form of an angry-looking dragon. She'd only used this jutsu once before, and the chakra drain had left her unconscious for nearly an hour. That had, however, been a year ago, and she prayed that she was strong enough, even as she felt her chakra levels plummet. She watched the dragon ram facefirst into the weak spot on the dome, which she assumed had been the farthest point from Haku when he cast it. Water began to fill the dome, as the dragon was destroyed by each impact it delivered. It roared and reformed from the water each time, while Hinata continued to expel more from her mouth. She was faltering. Sweat dripped down her face along with the splashes of water, and she was getting lightheaded. Finally she stopped generating water, and gasped in a deep breath. Pink and purple stars obscured her vision, and she distantly felt herself fall forward with a splash into 2 feet of water. Hinata. It took her a moment to recognize the voice as Naruto's, despite how loud he was screaming. That voice, coupled with the basic reaction to drowning, forced her to flail into a sitting position and cough up the water she had swallowed. She looked at where her dragon bullet had struck, and smiled. It was cracked badly. I can finish this. She stood, but the weight of her soaked clothes forced her down again. Naruto locked eyes with her, and nodded to answer the question she hadn't asked. He turned to face the crack in the ice, forming hand seals. Wind release. Drilling air bullet. He punched forward, sending a blast of faintly white glowing wind forward, and it spiraled as it flew. His favorite attack, created by Shukaku the one-tailed raccoon according to legend, slammed into the weakened section of the dome, finishing what Hinata had started and opening a hole in the dome big enough for the 3 genin. Naruto didn't hesitate. He made his way as quickly as possible to Hinata, shortly followed by Kiba. Together, 2 genin carried the third between them, and exited the dome along with the water of Hinata's finished attack. And I thought I was so awesome 'cause I learned the Grand Fireball, Kiba said with disbelief. That's gotta be the strongest jutsu I've ever seen. Way to go, Hinata. The last time she used it, Naruto spoke with concern, might have killed her. Hinata promptly passed out in their arms. She's strong, and so am I, but there are some jutsu a 12-year-old genin just can't handle. This kind of chakra exhaustion, he shook his head. She'll be out of it for a while. Naruto and Kiba set her down on the wet grass. What do we do now? Kiba asked. Do we go on without her? Stay here until she recovers? I don't know. Naruto ran a hand through his spiky hair, worried and frustrated. Or, I do know, but I don't want to do it. She picked her up again, bridal style, and set her gently in a sitting position at the base of a tree. Hinata-chan. He took off his father's haori, and draped it around her to keep her warm, then turned to Kiba. Let's go. Kiba nodded, and they took to the treetops in pursuit of Haku. Naruto had already drawn one of his father's kunai, and was now holding it between his bare teeth as he sprinted through the treetops on all fours. Hinata woke, shivering under Naruto's haori. She gasped as she realized where she was, and remembered what had happened. I tried to either break the dome or fill it with water. She grasped the haori tightly. I have enough chakra, she thought aloud, stuttering and shivering. T to F fight again. She stood, and winced at the cold as the haori fell. She picked it up and put it on over her drenched hoodie. Byakugan. She scanned the area for signs of Naruto's chakra, then started using the telescopic range of the Hyuga's Dujutsu to search Tazuna's house. It was empty, but there were no signs of a battle and no blood. She guided her vision along the road leading from Tazuna's house to the bridge, and saw Tsunami and Inari with 2 of Geitu's thugs knocked unconscious at their feet. She moved her vision to the bridge, and found Naruto, Asuma, and Kiba up against Zabuza and the masked shinobi she now knew to be Haku. She deactivated her Byakugan and headed to their rescue. More than once, she stumbled on a tree limb, still weak from using all her chakra for a water dragon bullet, but pressed on. I won't let this be, Naruto-kun. I won't let you fight this battle alone, not so long as I can stand. She broke through to the edge of the forest, not breaking stride at all. She leapt to the nearest road, and kept running. She blew past a startled Inari and Tsunami, pouring chakra into her legs for maximum speed. So that's the power of a ninja, Inari breathed. And we have 4 of them on our side. We can't lose now, Mom, not even against Getu. He flashed a toothy grin. I'm gonna go, and get the villagers to help them. Just wait, Kiba-sensei, I'll be an alpha wolf after all. Hinata panted as she approached the bridge, and when it came into the sight of her deactivated Byakugan, she gasped. Asuma was unconscious in a pool of blood, Kiba was fighting Zabuza alone, and Naruto was trapped in a dome of floating ice plates. Every inch of his body had been peppered with Senbon needles. Naruto-kun, she screamed, and he turned to face her, eyes wide. She dashed closer to Haku's ice release, and when she was within a relatively close range, she cried, "Substitution jutsu." Naruto appeared 20 feet outside the dome, and she took his place in the middle of Haku's ultimate jutsu. Hinata, the masked missing nin, greeted softly from within all 21 ice mirrors. Naruto told me you were incapacitated. I can still fight, she replied angrily. Byakugan, I'm sorry to hear that, Hinata. Does that mean you will force me to kill you? Haku threw a Senbon at her right hip, but she saw it coming with her Byakugan and dodged. I will tell you what I told Naruto. Remain still, and allow Zabuza-sama to kill Tazuna. Do this, and I will not kill you. Did he accept that deal? No. Then I won't. Haku sighed, and removed his mask. She could see that the missing nin had tears in his eyes. All these years of serving Zabuza-sama, and I have not yet taken a life. Please, don't make me do this. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, and shook his head. This is the last thing I'd want to. Hinata saw her chance, and seized it. Water release. Water bu. Haku's eyes snapped open, wide with fury, and she felt herself getting stabbed in 21 different places, one for each mirror Haku. They were too fast. My Byakugan couldn't even see them. Hinata. Naruto roared, and his desperation renewed his strength. He sprinted through a gap between 2 mirrors, and dove to her side as she crumpled to her hands and knees. Haku threw one more Senbon, aimed at Naruto's heart. Time seemed to slow down for Hinata. Unlike before, she could clearly see this needle, and she managed to move fast enough to intercept it, even though she had been on her knees. She coughed as it struck her in the center of her chest. For a brief moment, she could hear nothing. No one spoke, no one even breathed, and oddly, she couldn't hear the heartbeat that had been pounding in her ears beforehand. Then she sighed, and fell. Naruto screamed. His eyes suddenly felt like they were on fire, and a voice, unlike any he'd ever heard before, thundered in his mind, "What would you do to save her?" To erase this moment as though it had never happened to her. An aura of horrifying, visible red chakra consumed him, and the whisker marks on his cheeks thickened. He closed his eyes, still screaming in the real world, but inside, a numbing, frightening calm had washed over him. The answer was obvious. Anything. I'd fight, kill, and die. I'd do anything for her. Then you are worthy. Save her. The red chakra vanished, and Naruto opened his eyes. The mirrors, and their projections of Haku, seemed to move away from him in fear. When he looked down at Hinata, saw the chakra reserves in her body badly depleted, and what little remained was fading from the world completely. He pulled the fatal Senbon out of her heart, then looked up at Haku with his Rinnegan. I'm sorry. Haku began. Naruto dropped the Senbon and held out his hand, wet with Hinata's blood and his own. Diva Path. Shinra Tensei. The mirror shattered, and its pieces were blown backward by an invisible force that clearly wasn't wind release. The real Haku jumped free of another mirror, and retreated away from Naruto, who didn't follow. Instead he knelt next to Hinata, and formed a sequence of hand seals, none of which Haku had ever seen before. He laid a hand on her belly, and whispered words Haku was too far away to hear. Outer path, Rinne Tensai. At the same time a spike of Naruto's hair at the edge of his forehead turned white. Hinata gasped. Haku's eyes widened. That's completely impossible. Mycin bond pierced her heart. She died. Naruto nodded to himself in satisfaction and stood, watching the other 21 needles being forced out of Hinata's healing wounds. She breathed heavily, her lavender eyes wide with disbelief and staring up at the sky through Haku's ice mirrors. Naruto-kun, she gasped. Hinata. Naruto fell to his knees at her side. Are you all right? He called desperately. She gasped again as he came into the line of sight of her deactivated Byakugan eyes. Why your eyes? They hurt, Naruto admitted. What's wrong with them? Am I injured? Rinnegan, she breathed. His eyes, solid purple with a pattern of black, concentric circles, widened. Shinra Tensai. Rinne Tensai. I don't know where those names came from, but, were they really a Kekkei Genkai? How did I get? Haku saw his chance, and he created a new mirror, leaping into it and guiding it into place where the destroyed one had been. He's powerful, but I must not let it stop me. Zabuza-sama is counting on me. Ice release. Hailstone. The 21 mirrors of ice grew together, into a solid ice dome like the one they had been trapped in before. A giant projection of Haku spoke. This time, I must kill you. I'm sorry, but there's no way for you and Zabuza-sama to both live. The walls began to thicken, growing inward toward Naruto and Hinata. The latter tried to sit up, but she was completely drained of chakra, so much so that she couldn't move. Naruto-kun, I'll stop him. He smiled down at her, and even with the shock of seeing those otherworldly eyes set in Naruto's face, she smiled weakly back. He clasped his hands together, and breathed in deeply. This jutsu will drain all that remains of your chakra, said the strange voice from before. You are not the sage of 6 paths. Such an exertion, coupled with that of your previous jutsu, may well kill you. But Hinata won't die, even if I do. If I had to pick one of us to die, I'd pick me. Shinra Tensai. Naruto roared, and shoved both of his hands forward. The ice dome completely shattered on one side, sending the missing nin inside it flying along with chunks of ice 3 feet thick. Naruto collapsed next to Hinata, and his head landed in her lap. Naruto-kun. X. Kiba, meanwhile, was fighting Zabuza, which wasn't going well. He'd tried all of his Inuzuka clan jutsu, and his fire release was near useless against Zabuza, who specialized in water release. He'd managed to watch out of the corner of his eye the battle between Naruto and Hinata and Haku. He'd come within an inch of death, both when Hinata died and when Naruto resurrected her. Now, though, all 4 of his allies including Akamaru in his hoodie were incapacitated, and Zabuza turned his back to face Naruto and Hinata. Hey! He shouted in a panic. Don't turn your back on your opponent. Shut up, kid. You're prey, nothing more, and I'll be back to finish you. Kiba had an idea horrifyingly similar to what Naruto might have come up with in this situation. I can't believe I'm really gonna do this. Transformation jutsu. Zabuza turned back to face him, amused. A transformation? This should be fun. When the smoke of the jutsu cleared, there was no immediate sign of Kiba, until Zabuza heard the voice of a beautiful woman purr into his ear. Come on, Zabuza-sama, let's have a little more fun before you go, Zabuza laughed. This is just pathetic. You're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, aren't you, punk? The missing nin aimed his sword at the red markings on the woman's cheeks that marked her as an Inuzuka, and he bared his teeth under his mask as the hit connected, and passed right through. A kunai stabbed into his right hip, and he turned to face Kiba with his eyes wide. A simple, genin-level clone jutsu, coupled with me transforming into a rock. Not bad, huh, you devious little brat. Shut up and die, Kiba growled, so I can go save my friends. Zabuza backhanded him, sending him flying. The kunai twisted in his flesh as Kiba let it go, and Zabuza gritted his teeth in agony. This is a flesh wound, kid. It won't even slow me down. Damn it. Kiba snarled, and reached for another kunai. If I can just buy Naruto some time. Zabuza turned, and lowered his sword. Kiba followed his line of sight, and his eyes widened. At Wave's end of the unfinished bridge stood Getu, along with maybe 100 mercenaries armed to the teeth. I expected these four to wear you down, Zabuza, Getu began with a smirk, but this is pathetic. Look at you. The high and mighty demon of the hidden mist, so weak by now that we ordinary folk here, he gestured to the mercenaries, can just walk up to you and put you down. He snapped his fingers, and the mercenaries stepped forward, grinning. Kid, what did you say your name was? Kiba Inuzuka. Right. Kiba, go grab your teammates and scram. I'll deal with these idiots, and we don't have a reason to fight anymore. Then, shouldn't I help you? No. Leave it to me, it should be fun. He hefted Kubikiri Boucho. You'd only be in my way. Kiba nodded, and turned away as he saw Zabuza begin to sprint toward the mercenaries, laughing maniacally. Kiba stepped into the half-dome of cracked white ice, and nudged Naruto, then Hinata. Guys, get up. We gotta get out of here. Kiba-kun. I can't get up. I can't move at all. Hinata whispered weakly. And Naruto-kun is, she looked down to his head in her lap. He hasn't moved since he fell. All right, we can handle this. Kiba reached into his weapons pouch and pulled out a soldier pill. Hinata opened her mouth, and he popped it in. She chewed it with a crunching sound, and sat up with a groan. Kiba picked Naruto up and slung the unconscious genin over his shoulders. You go get Asuma-sensei. I'll take Tazuna and Naruto back to Tazuna's house. He turned to look at the mercenaries, and found to his shock that most of them were dead, attacked from one side by Zabuza and the other by the entirety of Wave, led by a boy holding a crossbow. What the hell? He recognized the boy as Inari, who had just finished cutting through the ranks of hardened mercenaries to reach his grandfather. Well, damn, kid might make a half-decent wolf after all. As he thought this, he felt Hinata gently slide Naruto off his shoulders. You can take Asuma-sensei instead, but I need to get Naruto to somewhere I can heal him. His chakra network is way too drained. Sure, Kiba replied, and made his way to Asuma, who was next to Inari and Tazuna. Hinata carried Naruto through the battlefield of Getu's making, carefully dodging every blow near her with efficiency. The effects of the soldier pill would eventually wear off, leaving her even more drained, and would likely leave her unconscious for an extended period, so she had to make good use of the little energy the pill had given her. Just when Tazuna's house was in sight, Naruto groaned weakly. Hinata-chan, it's all right, Naruto. We won. And we're alive. She smiled up at him softly. Yes, we're alive. What about Asuma-sensei and Kiba? Both fine. Getu arrived, and Zabuza's probably killed him by now. Zabuza. That's what I saw. Weird, he observed, and passed out again. Naruto woke, panting, in a Konoha hospital bed. He was still sweating from his nightmare of being eaten by a giant, roaring orange fox. He looked around, horribly disoriented. He'd never been in a room like this before, his last few memories were hazy and incomplete, and everything in the room was shining. Shinra Tensei. And then one of the ice mirrors was missing from the formation, and Haku was running away from him. Rinne Tensei. After that, his next memory was of looking down at Hinata, who was breathing again, looking up at him and telling him he had the Rinnegan. The Rinnegan. Naruto sat up, and brought a hand into his field of vision. Whoa. His hand was glistening, pulsing with a dim yet clearly visible blue light. Is this my chakra? He flexed his hand into a fist, then loosened it again. Everything else is shining with light too, everything. It's like the walls and the floor have chakra too. Is this what Hinata sees with her Byakugan? Hinata. He remembered. She died. I brought her back, I think, but is she still okay? He leapt out of the bed, and made for the door, but before he reached it, it opened of its own accord. Discover more. Books. Books and literature. The third Hokage stepped through, smiling. Good morning, Naruto-kun. Hokage-sama. Is Hinata all right? She's fine. She was here earlier this morning, in fact. The Hokage gestured to the glass vase at Naruto's bedside, which held a single, bright orange rose. Where Hinata had found one of those, no one would ever know. Both of you were suffering from severe chakra exhaustion, and to everyone's surprise, Hinata was the first to recover. The first thing she asked about was likewise, your condition, and I had to inform her you were still recovering. That was 2 days ago. How long was I out? 11 days. Chakra exhaustion like what you suffered is serious business. You could have died, but you're lucky. Your chakra network is surprisingly resilient. The Hokage reached out and fed the spike of white hair at the edge of Naruto's forehead. Did you do what I think you did, to suffer this much damage? What do you mean? Naruto reached up to the white tuft of hair. I'm injured. I suppose you should just take a look for yourself. From within a pocket of his robe, the third withdrew a hand mirror. I had been ready to use ninjutsu to wake you, in case you weren't yet awake, but the medic nin who was attending you predicted you to wake up today, and I planned accordingly, he commented. Naruto took the mirror, and looked down at his reflection. 2 wide Rinnegan eyes stared back at him. The white hair, he finally asked after gawking for a while, what happened there? Discover more. Books. Books and literature. You forced so much chakra through your pathways at once that they were ruptured. I've only seen a shinobi's hair whiten like that once before, and it happened to his whole head. He was dead in a matter of hours. Naruto blanched. Fortunately, whatever healing power you have was able to minimize the damage, the Hokage added quickly. Your chakra pathways have recovered, as have you. You'll live. Perhaps a few years less than you might have, but you'll live. Does that mean I shouldn't use the Rinnegan anymore? No, it does not, the Hokage answered firmly. With those eyes you have the potential to become one of the most powerful shinobi in the world, just use your powers carefully. And whatever jutsu you used, that put such a strain on your body, please avoid using it from now on. I doubt you'd survive a second use of it. Now, the Hokage continued, come with me. Some very important people are very interested in what transpired in the Land of Waves. Wait. Naruto followed him. Can I see Hinata first? Ah, that won't be necessary. Hinata's one of the people we're going to see. Naruto ran to catch up with the Hokage. Wait up, Hokage-sama. Naruto was suddenly very aware that he was still wearing a hospital gown. Gathered in the Hokage's office were 3 faces he recognized: Hinata, the fire daimyo, and Asuma-sensei. There were also 4 whom he'd never seen before: an old man leaning on a cane with his face wrapped in bandages, a younger but still old man with a fluffy white mane and red marks on his cheeks, a man who was wearing white and blue cage robes, hence apparently the cage, and a man with black hair and pearly white eyes, wearing the Hyuga crest on the right sleeve of his robes. Naruto, the Hokage began, and sat behind his desk. Please give us the most detailed report you can of how you unlocked the Rinnegan, and what you did with it. Discover more. Books. Books and literature. Naruto blinked. Ah, it all started when me and Hinata were training in the woods, he began hesitantly. We took a minute to relax, and this kid found us, and said he was looking for medical herbs. It didn't take long before we figured out he was working with Zabuza. You guys all know who Zabuza is, right? A collective nod answered that question. Right. So, this kid starts fighting us with an ice release. I guess it was a Kekkei Genkai, and then Kiba showed up and helped us fight him off. He came back a few seconds later and trapped us all in a dome made out of ice. We were able to break out of it. He paused, and looked at Hinata. No, Hinata got us out of it. She blushed faintly. And me and Kiba left her to recover because she used up all her chakra. Hiyashi Hyuga's eyes narrowed. So, we went after this ice kid, Haku, to save Tazuna and Asuma-sensei, and we found Asuma fighting Zabuza and Haku 2-on-1. He was putting up a great fight, but he was outnumbered, so Kiba took on Zabuza and I fought Haku. Only, Haku had so much more chakra than I did, 'cause I'd been training, and there was the ice dome, and all that. Gah, I'm making excuses. Naruto ran a hand through his hair nervously. Anyway, Haku was beating me. He had me surrounded by a bunch of plates of ice, like mirrors, and he could throw Senbon through all of them. He said some stupid stuff about me giving up and letting him kill Tazuna. I said no way, and then Hinata showed up. She used a substitution jutsu on me, put herself inside Haku's power, and got cut up by Senbon too. Hiyashi's eyes narrowed further. So I went back in to help her, but she got hit by a Senbon in the heart. All eyes turned to Hinata, who was completely focused on Naruto's story, her eyes wide. After that it starts getting hazy. I started screaming, and this voice asked me, "What would you do to save her? To erase this moment as though it had never happened to her?" And I said I'd do anything. By now, both Naruto and Hinata were blushing furiously, and that little conversation was all in my head. By the way, he said in a small voice, then steeled himself and spoke louder. Next thing I remember, I said, Shinra Tensei, but I don't know what the jutsu did 'cause I don't remember the next few seconds. After that, I looked down at Hinata, he shuddered, and she wasn't breathing, so I said, Rinne Tensei. Everyone in the room sharply drew in a collective breath. Next thing I remember, Hinata was looking up at me, alive again, and she told me, he pointed at his right eye. She told me about these. Then Haku used another jutsu, and I used Shinra Tensei again, but I still don't remember what it actually did 'cause I passed out. Then, Hinata was carrying me, I guess she took a soldier pill for extra chakra. Anyway, she was carrying me, and said we won. Then I passed out again, and woke up back here in Konoha. The room fell deathly silent, and Naruto looked around at the gathering of extremely powerful people as though he had done something terribly wrong and was expecting an equally terrible punishment. Finally, the Hokage spoke. Gentlemen, he addressed the adults, you have all the answers Naruto and I can provide at this time. With the exception of Jiraiya, I must ask you all to leave. No one argued, but Hiyashi made his way to Naruto instead of the door, clamping a hand onto the genin's shoulder. Uzumaki, you and I will be having a very long talk about you and my daughter. Then he too left the room. Only Naruto, Hinata, the Hokage and Jiraiya remained. Naruto and Hinata immediately leapt from their respective chairs and hugged each other. Ahem, the Hokage cleared his throat, and the two released each other. Naruto, Hinata, I'd like you to meet Jiraiya, the Toad Sage of the Sannin, and the only ninja in the known world who has first-hand experience with the Rinnegan and isn't a missing nin. Discover more. Books and literature. Books. Jiraiya flashed a proud grin. With respect, Hokage-sama, that's, legendary Toad Sage of the legendary Sannin. Discover more. Books and literature. Books. Yes, well, the Hokage replied with a sigh, Naruto. Jiraiya here was your father's Junin sensei. He gestured to Jiraiya, whose grin broadened. Just as I was, in turn, his sensei. He's one of the most powerful shinobi in the world, and he's agreed to train you, Naruto. Naruto blinked, looked to Jiraiya, then the Hokage, and then Hinata. She nodded to him subtly, and whispered with a smile, good luck. Naruto shook his head, and faced Jiraiya. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama, Jiraiya-sama, but I can't. I've trained with Hinata-chan for 2 years, and that's gotten me to where I am today. What? Jiraiya roared in shock. Kid, this isn't a deal you just pass up. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. Someone thinks highly of himself, Naruto thought, but said nothing. Naruto-kun, Hinata began shakily, Jiraiya-sama is right. You'd get so powerful with that kind of training. Exactly. Naruto intertwined his hand with hers, and she blushed. Jiraiya-sama, as much as I appreciate it, I can't accept your offer, unless you train me and Hinata together. Everyone's eyes widened, And Naruto beamed. I already said I'd do anything for her, didn't I? Believe it, Hinata-chan and I got this far without a sensei at all. So imagine how strong we'd get if we trained under one of the Sannin. It wouldn't be fair at all for Hinata to miss out while I get the opportunity of a lifetime. Jiraiya nodded along with everything Naruto said, chuckling quietly, and when the blonde genin finished, he let himself laugh louder. Oh, I see how it is. This should be fun, and you're right anyway. Jiraiya turned his gaze on Hinata. As a Hyuga, you have incredible chakra control honed through the Byakugan and gentle fist, don't you? Hinata nodded after a brief hesitation. Why yes. My gentle fist isn't as good as some of the other Hyuga, but I use En ninjutsu too, she trailed off. What Hinata-chan means is, Naruto continued, she can do things no other Hyuga has even tried to do in decades, and she's great at it. Hinata blushed and tried to hide herself deeper inside her hoodie, but got nowhere. Jiraiya nodded, smirking but not laughing at this point. Hinata, what exactly did you do to earn such praise from Naruto? What makes him say that you're great at it? The water dragon bullet, she replied reluctantly, and Jiraiya's eyebrows slid upward. IF found out in the land of waves that IF finally have enough chakra to use it, but not for too long. I see. Jiraiya rubbed his custom forehead protector thoughtfully. Well, since I'll be stuck here in Konoha anyway, training Naruto and such, I suppose I might as well train you too. There are a few jutsu you might be able to make particularly effective use of, if all this is true. Thank you, Jiraiya-sama, I mean, Jiraiya-sensei. Jiraiya grinned. So here's the deal. I'll stick around and train you two for the next couple of months, and as a bonus, I'll stick around to see you two compete in the Chunin exams, but after that, you two had better be damned strong. In fact, I'll make you the deal right now. Jiraiya stood, and held out his hand palm up, forming a spinning sphere of chakra in his palm. This is the Rasengan, an A-rank jutsu that requires no hand seals and no elemental affinity. Hinata, you're gonna learn it by the start of the Chunin exams. He turned to Naruto. You, kid, you're gonna learn to use those eyes properly. You'll be unlocking and mastering each path of the Rinnegan with my training, and you'll have 3 of them unlocked by the start of the Chunin exams. Those are my terms, meet them and I'll keep training you too. No problem, Naruto announced loudly. Me and Hinata-chan should have all that done in 2 weeks, tops. Believe it, I don't, Jiraiya replied, with a slight hint of cold anger in his tone. The tasks I've set for you are not easy. That's why doing them in 2 months is a fair challenge. Jiraiya made a fist, destroying the Rasengan in his hand. Meet me in training ground 35 tomorrow morning. We'll start your training then. The Toad Sage left the room, and Hinata immediately hugged Naruto again. Naruto K-kun, thank you so much. Naruto, Hinata, the Hokage interrupted whatever Naruto had been about to say. One last thing before you go. The Chunin exams, as Jiraiya mentioned, are in 2 months, and you will be competing in them. The level of power you two demonstrated in the Land of Waves, it's just laughable for you two to remain genin at this point. Not to mention the quick thinking you showed in the Shirokyuden. Now, be on your way. The Hokage sighed. I have a lot more to deal with today. Blushing at the mention of the Shirokyuden, Naruto and Hinata quickly left the room. Naruto. Open your eyes. Naruto knew he was dreaming immediately, judging solely by the fact that he was staring up at a completely different ceiling from the one he'd gone to sleep under. He sat up, and realized he had been laying in shallow water. His back was soaked. Who's there? Over here, Naruto. He turned, and saw a smiling face looking back at him, a face framed by yellow hair as bright and spiky as his own. Next to this man, Minato Namikaze, stood a woman of the same age, with the long, scarlet hair characteristic of the Uzumaki clan. Naruto's eyes widened. Come here, son. Discover more. Books and literature. Books. Naruto stood, and made his way to his parents' arms. They embraced him, and he let himself cry. It's okay, Naruto. It's us, we're here now, it's not a dream. His father ruffled Naruto's hair. It's time we gave you some answers. Naruto listened, still crying quietly. Look over there, Naruto, his mother pointed, and he looked. At the far end of this giant red sewer they were in, there was a wall of golden bars that held back a giant, growling orange fox with 9 massive tails lashing behind it. That's the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the 9 tails that attacked our village 12 years ago. That night, we tried everything to stop it, but ultimately we had to resort to this situation. You're what's called a Jinchuriki, his father continued. One of 9 humans who carry a tailed beast sealed within them. So why me? Why seal the Kyuubi, in your own son? Naruto whispered, trembling. Because you're strong enough to control him, Minato replied. But that's not all. I sealed my own and Kushina's chakra in here, a leftover of our souls, so we could give you these answers. We would have wanted to be there for you from the start, but you only triggered this function of the seal when you used the Kyuubi's chakra for a moment in the land of waves. And then you awakened the Rinnegan, which cut that chakra off from you. I don't understand that at all. It's simple. We wanted you to have the power to defend yourself, so until you unlocked your Rinnegan, the seal was set to leak the massive chakra of a Biju through to you. Once you had the Rinnegan, which we're so proud of you for, by the way, that leak was dangerous and unnecessary, so it was sealed. Mom, Dad, how did I do that, anyway? How'd I get the Rinnegan? This time, Kushina spoke. It's triggered by absolute devotion to another person, a willingness to do absolutely anything to protect them. Your mind rationalizes this, and turns it into a question. What would you do to save this person? Naruto realized, the correct answer, the one that got me the Rinnegan, was, anything. That's right. For better or worse, you didn't stop to think about what exactly, anything, would entail, you just made that choice on instinct. And it didn't have to be that kind of love specifically, but you awakened it to save Hinata Hyuga. Minato beamed. My little boy's all grown up, I see. Naruto blushed, and Kushina smacked her husband on the back of the head. Moving on, Kushina announced, smirking as Minato rubbed the sore spot, there's a scroll in the Uzumaki clan trunk we left you, that should explain how to properly use the Rinnegan. The one I couldn't open, Naruto remembered. It's about the Rinnegan. Kushina nodded. And it's sealed so only someone with a Rinnegan will be able to open it. Once you've read through some of it, you should be able to remember using its jutsu, such as Shinra Tensei. She beamed and ruffled his hair. I was never able to do it myself, ya know. I was born with another Kekkei Genkei instead. But you, Naruto, you'll be able to put that scroll to good use. But there's something else very important we have to talk to you about. Minato laid a hand on his son's shoulder. We don't understand the whole situation yet. We died before we could piece it together, but Akatsuki is trying to gather all 9 of the Biju and recombine their powers into the demon that the Sage of 6 Paths defeated 1,000 years ago. The 10 Tails. Even a single Biju's power, channeled back into the 10 Tails, you have to stop them, Naruto. Stop the Akatsuki. Gather the Jinchuriki before they do. Present a combined front and defeat them. Okay, Naruto replied. I'll do that. I was already gonna become the Hokage, and with that kind of influence the other Jinchuriki should listen to me. But how will I recognize them? That's just it, Naruto. Kushina smiled down at him. Each Jinchuriki bears a stigma, a mark of their Biju. You have your 6 whiskers, for example. We don't really know all of them, but Shukaku the one tail gives its Jinchuriki black rings around the eyes. The 3 tails marks its host with a pattern like a stitch on the left cheek. The 7 tails turns the bearer's hair teal and their eyes orange, and the 8 tails puts a mark like a bull's horn tattoo on its Jinchuriki's cheek. Now, some of these marks might be covered by their bearers, but if you search for them, they'll likely seek you out in return. Kushina intertwined her hand with Minato's and finished. We have to go now, Naruto. We don't have much chakra here inside you, and when it runs out we'll vanish forever. We need to conserve it for the next time. Naruto nodded numbly, and his parents hugged him. Goodbye for now, Naruto. So, Naruto stood alone in front of the cage that had been placed in his subconscious, a few moments later. You're the Kyuubi no Kitsune, huh? The creature that attacked Konoha the night I was born. That's right, the creature within answered, making no effort to hide its annoyance. Why did you stay here, after your parents left to conserve what pathetic little chakra they had remaining? I wanted to talk to you. Naruto stared up into the hate-filled eyes of the strongest of the Biju. Is that really your name? Kyuubi no Kitsune. No, the fox replied, surprised by the question. My name's Naruto Uzumaki. The boy continued to stare up at him without a trace of fear or even hatred. This was likely due to the rather solid wall between the two, the demon noted idly, but there was still a chance the boy was just that plucky. I'm sure you already knew that, but it feels right to introduce myself anyway. I will not tell the likes of you my name, the Kyuubi growled again, louder this time and with a hint of condescension. Don't bother asking again. So what should I call you, then? Don't call me anything. You don't interest me, so I'd rather not talk with you at all. Huh. Naruto looked around. It's so dark and depressing in here, is that because you like it this way? I don't think my mind would naturally look like this, so did you make it look like this? The Kyuubi snorted. Don't blame it on me. I had nothing to do with the pitiful state of this inner world of yours. As you can see, his tails lashed out in all directions, striking the bars of his cage. I'm completely trapped in here. But to answer your question, I don't care particularly for this scenery. It wouldn't be a great view even if I hadn't been looking at it for the past 12 years. Since you attacked the village and killed countless people, you mean? My parents, the parents of some of my classmates, some of the people I might have been classmates with are dead because of you. Then why do I see no hatred in your eyes? The Kyuubi rumbled. Why do you choose to speak with me? Because I don't understand why you did it. Why kill them? They never did anything to you, did they? I killed them because they were human. I hate you and all your kind. It's what? Horrible, monstrous, evil, sad. It's sad. Why don't you hate me? The Kyuubi repeated, startled by this point. Because I feel bad for you. Naruto smiled sadly up at the look of surprise on the demon's face. The Sage of Six Paths created you, right? By splitting up the chakra of the 10 tails into 9 entities. So, in a sense you were born because of a human. Is that why you hate us? Because you didn't ever want to exist? Or is it because the humans saw you as a monster, and hated you first? Were you innocent in the beginning? The Kyuubi remained silent, pondering this. Then he spoke up louder, angrier. Do you seek to tame me, child? To make my power your own? No. It'd be nice to be that strong, but I don't want a shortcut to that power. I'm here, Naruto admitted, because I know what it's like to feel hate. To be hated. I know how much it hurts, Kyuubi. If it hadn't been for Hinata, and Iruka-sensei, and some of the other kids who looked at me like a real person, I might have turned out like you did. Hating the whole world and thinking to myself, they deserve it. They started it. They treated me like this, so it's their fault. I might have really done it, but then someone was there for me, and she saved me from that darkness. The Kyuubi listened patiently, until Naruto finished and it replied, You're not the first human to play that card against me. I don't want your pity. No, I understand that too. Pity isn't as bad as hate, because you know they're trying to help, but it still makes you feel low. Less than what you are, and what you want to be. Naruto smiled again. You know, this really is just a projection of my mind. It's a thought, and I can change that thought really easily. He looked around, humming thoughtfully, and then snapped his fingers. The dim-lit crimson sewer was replaced by a vast, serene valley ringed with trees bearing sweet fruit. The floor beneath them turned to an endless sea of soft, warm grass. The ceiling became a sky with its own glorious yellow, No, orange sun, in a perpetual sunrise. The Kyuubi looked around, shocked, even as its cage expanded to give it room to wander. Then, its attention snapped back to the boy who had done all this in the blink of an eye. Naruto was still smiling. Do you like it? I guess a Biju might find it a bit too tranquil. I could make it whatever you want. Any suggestions? 12 years I festered in a lapdog's cage in a stinking sewer, and now this, the Kyuubi mused. I might yet give you my name after all. I think it's morning out in the real world, Naruto said with a glance to the cloudless sky. I'll see you again tomorrow night. Naruto woke, and sat up as soon as his eyes were open. He yawned, stretched, and crawled out of bed. He quickly changed into a black shirt and neon orange pants, then stuffed his mother's Rinnegan scroll in his pocket. He made himself a bowl of ramen for breakfast and packed 2 more dry rectangular packages of instant ramen into the weapons pouch on the back of his pants. After that, he made his way to the front door of the manor and opened it. Hinata stood on the other side, with her fist raised to knock. Oh, hi, Naruto-kun. Hinata-chan. He greeted her with a hug and a quick, yet hesitant kiss, at which they both blushed. I figured you'd be waiting at the training ground. And no, I wouldn't go without you. She blushed again, and toyed with her index fingers. It seemed that little habit had resurfaced, despite her efforts to suppress it. So, this is the Uzumaki Manor. Yeah, hey, maybe I could show you around after we train with Jiraiya-sensei. I'd like that. Along the way to training ground 35, Naruto grinned as another topic of conversation came to him. Hinata-chan, you remember those pranks I always used to pull? She giggled. You spray painted the Hokage monument just a few weeks ago. Not one of my better ideas, Naruto admitted. But hey, I just thought of an idea for a good one. I was thinking maybe you and I could pull some massive prank against Team 7. Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Rock Lee, Kakashi Hatake, you really think the two of us could? I haven't really thought of anything, but maybe you and I could brainstorm tonight, huh? That actually sounds really exciting. Great. And maybe if we had our faces covered, they'd still suspect me, at least, so we'd have to use a jutsu no one thinks we know. They say the Rinnegan lets its user learn any jutsu really quickly, and use all the elements, so maybe if I used something like an earth release. He paused. Wait a minute, I just remembered, Hinata, when you use your Byakugan, does it look to you like everything has chakra? Not just people. Yes, she exclaimed. I've talked to the other Hyuga, but they never saw it that way. They always say, it's just a side effect of my weak Byakugan, and it's not really chakra, but, I can tell. So, they don't see it. I don't think so. If they do, they're lying when they say they don't. Maybe your Byakugan is special, if you can see something no one else can. And one day, we'll figure out how to use this chakra we're seeing. I never even considered that, Hinata replied. Do you really think so? Naruto nodded immediately, and she flashed a smile back, then looked down thoughtfully. When I woke up after the effects of the soldier pill, I couldn't find Asuma-sensei or Kiba-kun. I asked Hokage-sama, and he said they were training alone outside the village. He told me our team wouldn't be getting any missions until after the Chunin exams, and I haven't seen Asuma-sensei or Kiba-kun at all since then. Naruto pondered this. Huh, maybe that's a good thing. Kiba's gonna need to get strong too, and Asuma-sensei taught him a lot of fire release jutsu in Wave. I think Kiba's best suited to learning from Asuma-sensei, and with all that time being trained one-on-one, we'll all do great in the Chunin exams, I can feel it. Naruto-kun, Hinata exclaimed suddenly and excitedly. I just realized, if your Rinnegan can see chakra like my Byakugan, can you see my chakra network or any of the points on it? Naruto replied sadly, I can see where you're going with that, Hinata-chan, but it's a bad idea. She looked down sadly. Teaching you the gentle fist, you're right, my father would have you killed for knowing those techniques. Can you see them, though? I can see the network glowing though your whole body, but all that light just blends together. I can't make out the actual chakra pathways at all. Shortly after that, they arrived at Training Ground 35, where Jiraiya was waiting. It was a simple paved field dotted with wooden dummies and posts, some of which were badly damaged. Good morning, the Toad Sage greeted with a cheerful grin. Now, I'd like to be clear on something before we get started. I'm gonna push you two harder than you'd ever dream of pushing yourselves. But, I'll do it in such a way that you won't resent me for it, and in the long run, you'll become powerful shinobi with what you learn from me. You might even thank me. But before that, there's gonna be pain, exhaustion, and maybe fear for your lives. We'll start off slow. You are still genin after all, but after that, Jiraiya trailed off. You two think you can handle it? No problem, said Naruto as Hinata nodded solemnly. Good. Jiraiya reached into one of his pockets, and pulled out a water balloon. Hinata, break that with just your chakra control. Spin your chakra around in your palm until it makes the water rip the balloon open. He tossed it to her, and she caught it. That's step 1 out of 3 to learning the Rasengan. Naruto withdrew his mother's scroll from his pocket, and opened it to confirm it was the right one. Jiraiya-sensei, he called, should I be studying this to learn the 6 paths, or do you have something else planned? Jiraiya took the scroll and scanned through a bit of it. Ah, this is significantly better material than what I had in mind. He handed it back. It's all there. What the 6 paths do, how to unlock each of them, all the Kekkei Genkai techniques the Rinnegan has to offer, and it's all in Kushina's tidy little handwriting, too. She must have studied the Rinnegan extensively in hopes of unlocking her own. She probably went so far as to condense all of the Uzumaki clan's knowledge on. There was a loud, startling popping sound, and a splash of water hit the ground. Naruto and Jiraiya turned to look at Hinata, who had dropped the remains of the water balloon and was blushing furiously. Sorry, I hadn't meant to interrupt. Stage 1 of the Rasengan in maybe 20 seconds. I'd known the Hyuga had incredible chakra control, but 20 seconds? That's just ridiculous. Jiraiya snapped free of his thoughts when he noticed Naruto smirking at him. What's so damn funny, kid?